I also consider cornbread to be baking.
Yes.
Because it's bread.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
We're on the same page. I was just wanted to clarify before we moved on.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know who I was dealing with here. Coming up on Need to Know, the truth behind sweet potato casserole, Thanksgiving dessert ideas that are not pies, and some expert pie decorating tips to help you this holiday season. That and everything else you need to know. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Need to Know. I am your host, Gemma Stafford, professional chef, cookbook author, and creator of Bigger Bolder Baking. And with me, as always, are two lovely ladies, Ami Shukla, who is the culinary director here at Bigger Bolder Baking, and Tianna Cohen, who is an amateur baker, but a professional host.
Yes, definitely.
I had a very Irish moment there. Did any of you hear what I said?
No.
Wit.
Oh.
Didn't hear that? Never mind. Keep
Oh,
moving.
I love it.
Sometimes very Irish words come out of my mouth, and that was one of them.
Well, I am so excited to jump into hot from the oven today because I'm taking us actually into the oven. I want to talk all about sweet potato casserole. So for those of you listening, if you are not familiar with sweet potato casserole, I'm going to read exactly what it is to get us started. A sweet potato casserole is a traditional side dish often served during the holiday season, particularly Thanksgiving in the United States. It typically features mashed sweet potatoes mixed with ingredients like butter, brown sugar, and spices like cinnamon and nutmeg, and that to enhance the natural sweetness of the potatoes. The mixture is often topped with either marshmallows or a crunchy pecan streusel, or both, and then baked until the top is golden and the sweet potato filling is warm and creamy. Now, this dish is loved here in the United States, or sometimes it's not, but some celebrities that do love it are country singer Reba McEntire and Taylor Swift, to name a few. But it got me thinking because I remembered a few episodes ago, Gemma had made a very quick mention that she doesn't care for this as a side dish, and I want to know why.
Well, I think it's an obvious, like, I didn't grow up with, number one, I obviously didn't grow up with Thanksgiving, but I think it falls in the same category as like green bean casserole. I didn't grow up with it. Mm-hmm. Therefore, it's not my jam. Mm-hmm. So like we would have had Thanksgiving, we would have had Christmas dinner, which is turkey and ham and all the other things. But it's just not something that I'm familiar with. And I have to say, in Ireland, we wouldn't have that sweet and salty combo in our food. So that's not the style of an Irish dish.
Gotcha. Ami, did you grow up with it?
Well, as a first-generation immigrant, there were like certain traditions that my parents picked up on, like Christmas. We did a Christmas, but for whatever reason, my mom always thought like, oh, well, Thanksgiving is about turkey and I'm vegetarian, so we don't celebrate Thanksgiving. So we just never did it until I got a little bit older, and now we do with the kids. But so it is also not exactly something I grew up with. And I do have to say I never really picked up on the sweet potato casserole with the marshmallows. My feeling is sweet potatoes are so delicious and sweet enough on their own. Yeah. And I don't always, I think a little contrast, like something salty. There's this amazing recipe in one of Ottolenghi's cookbooks where you do sort of a yogurt garlic dip for sweet potatoes, and you put a little lime zest on them.
Yum.
And it's fantastic. And I think flavors like that can be really wonderful with sweet potatoes. So it's not traditional. I would never put marshmallows on sweet potatoes. I can see how pecans are wonderful, but
Did you say they were candied pecans?
Crunchy.
Crunchy. I think candied. Okay. Because like, that's even extra, but that's even more. I don't know. Now, tell me this, because you probably grew up, you grew up with Thanksgiving.
I did.
Traditionally. Yeah. So is this something that you're into?
Yes. And so the funny thing is this is the thing that I make for like when I go to Thanksgiving.
No,
this is what Tianna will bring, the sweet potato casserole. And so I thought it was so funny. But I don't care. It's funny is I don't care for the marshmallow part.
Yeah.
Like my family does. So I'll wait till they all scoop out their piece, and then I just like the sweet potato part. And I do like it with the butter and the brown sugar and like it, but it's not a lot.
Yeah.
I like the little bit of sweetness. But in researching all this, I was like, why marshmallows? Because you both kind of had that like, oh, you didn't grow up with it. How did it come to be? So I thought this was really interesting. In my research, I found that marshmallows entered the sweet potato casserole scene originally as a marketing campaign. So sweet potato casserole dates back all the way to 1796.
Wow.
As a dish, which, yeah, it's a long time. But it wasn't until 1917 when marshmallows entered the scene. So the brand, the marketers of Angelus Marshmallows hired Boston Cooking School magazine's founder Janet Mackenzie Hill to create a dish with their marshmallows. And it was around the holidays. And so that's what she did. She added marshmallows to a traditional sweet potato casserole at the time and created what we now know as sweet potato casserole.
I think as a chef, I get it. I absolutely do get it. And like I am like, I do eat like some of my favorite people ask me what my favorite desserts, and they're like, it's apple crumble and rice pudding, and it's the stuff that I grew up with that is not fancy. It is not like, you know, really special in any way, but it's because I grew up with it. I love it so much. So I do get why, like, oh, people have to have that on their Thanksgiving table. For me as a chef, everything, when you create a dish, it all has to make sense. There has to be a reason. And what I just don't buy into is the reason that they put marshmallows on top of sweet potato was because it was for a marshmallow company. So it just seems to me like it was just very made up and not something that was necessarily the best thing ever, but like now people really enjoy it.
Well, it started out as something made up. Right.
Yeah.
Then it became, then people did it, and then it became tradition for people.
Right.
So now years later, somebody, has had this in their family for a long time. And I can understand there's a real emotional component to these kinds of traditional meals, particularly Thanksgiving, Christmas dinner. You look forward to these things. In my family, there's, different holiday meals that we'll make, brisket and latkes. And I only make that once a year. So then there's, everybody looks forward to that. And if I decide I want to go off script and do something different, people feel very emotional about it.
Yeah, they do. You really can't mess with people's like holiday dinners, can you not?
No, I don't.
Same in my house. Like I remember one time when I was like a young chef and I wanted to make like something for Christmas dinner, and my brother and my sisters were like, don't even think about it. Mm-hmm. Don't even, like I wanted to make the stuffing or something, and they were like, no. Yeah. Like mom does all of these things. Just let her do it. She knows how to do it.
Well, it's interesting because when talking about sweet potato casserole, and this is obviously, we're talking about baking here. I want to get your opinion is, do you think a casserole is baking?
It depends on the casserole. I will say that. Depends on the casserole. I like there to be a flour product involved for it to be baking. That's kind of my rule. Like people, like we talk about recipes all the time, Ami and I, and if it doesn't involve like flour, and if it was like a sweet potato casserole, I would say it's not baking. If it had a pastry crust, I would say, well, that's more baking. If there was a flour element, I would say then I would consider it. But a casserole, I don't think is baking. I will say that like somebody asked me one time, for a long time, they asked me to make shepherd's pies. Which is another different type of casserole, right? And I was like, that's savory. That's very savory. Yeah. And they were like, yeah, but you bake it in the oven. And I was like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Still no. But I have made chicken pies and I have made chicken cobbler and put them up on the website also because there's biscuits and pie crust involved.
Right.
So it's a funny line. Ami, what do you think?
Well, I want to say if you put marshmallows on a sweet potato casserole, it's not baking. But if you put a streusel topping on, it is. But I guess that would be really getting into the minutia of whether or not, like if you put something in the oven, is it automatically considered baking?
And some people think it is.
I think it's interesting that you say it has to include flour.
Yeah.
Which I guess maybe I would think so too, like something that includes some sort of a pastry, which is maybe why I would say a streusel topping.
Yeah, I think there has to be some baking element. Yeah. Usually it's a pie crust, like more common. It's like there's a pie crust or something.
Right.
But we just last year we made a sweet potato souffle.
Yes.
Okay, so now that I would consider baking. That was whipped with eggs and it was kind of light and airy.
Yeah.
There was baking technique involved with that.
And it wasn't a sweet souffle, it was a savory one. But like Ami said, you had to whip egg whites and it was a whole big thing. So I agree also, that's baking.
Well, if you want to try a sweet potato souffle, you can look for it in the show notes this year and skip on the sweet potato casserole.
I also consider cornbread to be baking.
Yes.
Because it's bread.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
We're on the same
okay.
page. I was just wanted to clarify before we moved on.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know who I was dealing with here.
Oh my gosh. I was just in New Orleans for a wedding and I had the best cornbread of my
Really?
life. It was so good. I'm still
I love cornbread.
dreaming about
I
it.
love when it's just baked and it's not dry.
Oh,
You know, they
yeah.
get dry really fast.
Yeah.
What made this cornbread so delicious?
It was like not burnt, but like the outside was like crispy and then the inside was super moist
Oh,
and
nice.
like soft.
I'll go back to contrast.
Yeah.
Contrast in flavors. Like when you have a sweet potato casserole, but a crunchy pecan topping is really different. If you've got like this like crisp outer coating on a cornbread that's soft and moist on the inside, those things get really exciting in terms of flavor.
I was very excited. It was so good. Well, still on this topic of like holiday desserts, pie is the, star of the show. I feel like this time of year, everyone's making pie. So I wanted to talk about maybe some non-pie Thanksgiving desserts that people could turn to if maybe pie is not their forte or they're not a pie family. So Better Home and Gardens had an article about some easy recipes that can be substitutes for pies. So I thought I'd name a few, and then I'd love to hear what you two think would be some good pie substitutes. So one that they said was a bittersweet chocolate truffle tart, cinnamon scented icebox cake, baked applesauce donuts, and ricotta orange cupcakes with buttercream frosting. Now, it's funny because the article said these were easy, and I was reading them, and I'm like, these don't sound easy. Like, I don't know if I could do this.
Yeah.
But what do you think? What would be some easy alternatives to pies in like at a different dessert for Thanksgiving?
I'll go with my gut for these kinds of holidays when you're trying to do a few things. You want something cold that you didn't have to bake hot,
Right.
that you can make in advance, and it will feed a crowd easily. So my gut for these kinds of things, I would always go towards a cheesecake. Yeah, do a baked cheesecake. I have one on Bigger Boulder. I've a lot on biggerboulderbaking.com, or I have set ones with gelatin or some without gelatin. Make them 24 hours in advance, no problem. Keep them in the fridge, and all of them baked ones need 24 hours, and then just serve it cold, and then have a little compote or something with it and whipped cream. It's really simple, and you can just do a vanilla cheesecake. Like you don't have to get fancy, or you can get like I do have a pumpkin and praline cheesecake on the website, which actually Kevin loves. So yeah, like I would say cheesecake always sticks out to me.
Yeah, I do think it's always nice to have alternatives to pie, although there's a few pies that I make every year, and I think I would be disowned by my family if I didn't make the pies I make. But I will, we have a really big Thanksgiving, and I think that there's certain, like, again, different textures, a rich, indulgent option like cheesecake. I always make a cheesecake along with pies.
What type of cheesecake do you make?
I'll make a vanilla cheesecake, but then I'll do sort of a berry compote.
Yeah,
on
that's what I
top.
just said.
Yes, I know, but it's like it's so nice. And honestly, I have to say, it's one of the first things to go.
This is why we work so well together.
But then I'll always do some sort of a flourless chocolate, something like chocolatey, like a flourless chocolate, like a fallen souffle cake, or something flourless, chocolatey. And then, because I am going to say it, I am not a fan of pumpkin pie. I don't like pumpkin pie. I outsource the pumpkin pie. I tell someone else to make it. But I will make a pumpkin cake. Like just a big pumpkin bundt cake with like a caramel topping or something like that. It's so good. And I feel like I can bring that flavor in, but in a way that I will enjoy. Sometimes you can also do like a little pumpkin custard, or any kind of a little custard in pots, or a mousse or something that again gives you another texture, another feel.
You can do it the day before.
Yes, something that's flourless as an option for people who might be gluten-free, which is nice.
And you don't even have to put it in individual tubs. Get a lovely trifle dish or something and just do all of the mousse or whatever it is in the one trifle dish and let them scoop it themselves.
Yeah, I think that when you're thinking about Thanksgiving desserts, if you're thinking both homey and decadent, there's something like cozy, rich, cheesecake always, it feels it really checks both of those boxes.
Yeah.
And and then also you can do your compote seasonally. Like you've got, during the fall time, we always think like, oh, we've got so many berries during the summer. We really don't. Like early, in the fall time, we actually have a lot of lovely fruit to utilize. So you could customize that. And then also Ami just touched on it. If you are kind of like, what will I feed these people? Because somebody else is bringing a pie and somebody else is bringing, like I'm trying cookies or something. Chocolate is a very good way to go. It's always a crowd pleaser. And even if you did some really good brownies, I will say like my 100-hour, do my 100-hour brownies, because you can do them like 4 days in advance.
Ooh,
Double the recipe, do that.
amazing.
Right. There's also things like, people don't always know, like passion fruit is a seasonal fruit.
Yeah.
People forget about pomegranates, different things that you can
Cranberries.
things that you can put on top of a cheesecake. You can make a curd, like a passion fruit curd, and swirl that into a cheesecake.
Oh, you're getting so fancy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but it's
Remember, these were supposed to be easy.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm not.
She
easy.
wrote this
I'm
article. Yeah. Well, there's so much pressure. You even said it, like your family would disown you if you didn't make the pie. And so it reminds me of how the Friends episode where Rachel is like in charge of like making the dessert, right? And there's like all this pressure, like Monica's like, you better not mess up the dessert. And she's all proud of herself. I know there's like so many Friends episodes, but for those who are listening, if you've never had the joy of watching Friends, Rachel is supposed to make an English trifle for their Thanksgiving dessert. And she accidentally mixes up the ingredients of an English trifle and a shepherd's pie. And so she makes a full-on English trifle, including the layers of ladyfingers, jam, custard, which she makes from scratch, raspberries, beef sauteed with peas and onions, and then topped with bananas and cream. And then they eat it, and everyone's like pretending, that episode to me like really embodies the like pressure you can put on yourself in making these desserts. Like sometimes it's, it's the finale of a meal.
Yeah.
And then it usually is like pie. And so I want to talk about, do you remember a few weeks ago there was a guy who made his first pie ever, and Today covered it, and they called it like a portal to the underworld.
Yeah.
He made this
bubbling pie.
It was a bubbling pie. It looked like black tar. And can see it here, and if it'll be in the show notes for you to see this pie. But basically, he used this frozen blueberry and then canned cherries to make a pie with a pre-made pie crust, and it literally like tarred over and bubbled, and it didn't have, that picturesque quality that you would want in a pie. So I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to talk about how to, what are some tips and tricks to making your pie look presentable, and getting us into like really feeling confident about the display of your pie for this holiday season. So I want to move us into the mix here and talk pie decorating, pie crusts, all things pie. So let's get into it.
So anybody who hasn't seen this video, definitely check it out. It's a few seconds long and it looks like from another alternate universe. I don't recommend blueberry pie filling and cherry filling mixed together. I'm just going to say that, and I'm going to stop right there. That's all I'm going to say.
I will not put the recipe in the show notes.
Wouldn't be my choice. Maybe the pie was trying to escape from the tin, from itself. But anyway, there's lots of easy things. I have to say though, Ami, I know you are really fantastic at cakes. Do you know that you're a really good pie decorator?
Oh, why? Thank you.
Did you know that though? No, for real. Did you know that? You are.
I mean, I love.
You make really good looking pies.
Aw,
you really do. She does the rim all fancy.
Ooh.
And she does it different every time. And it's just, they always look amazing. And then mine look like a 5-year-old did it. Like when it comes.
But they taste so good.
They do taste good.
I mean, pies are so homey, right? They're like, I do try to make fancy crusts sometimes, and they look beautiful unbaked, and then they bake, and they kind of, the filling kind of bubbles out what you want it to do. And in the end, they're always going to have a little bit of a rustic look. One thing I will say, and I've looked at some of these like celebrity pie disasters or things burning, or this guy who burnt his pie. When you've got a baking time in your recipe, like bake this pie for 45 minutes, bake this pie for 55 minutes, set your timer for 30 minutes and check it. Just always, as a rule of thumb, set your timer unless you've got a particularly sensitive oven, a recipe where you're really not supposed to open the oven.
Yeah.
You're working with a pavlova or something, a meringue. Check your pie early. And if things look a little toasty, but things aren't done, just cover it with foil. You'll be fine. You're not going to have a burnt disaster unless you are trying to make a portal to the underworld.
That's a good point. But there are, I'm just thinking of some of the ways over the years. We actually have a post on biggerbolderbaking.com about the different ways that you can do the tops of your pies. Remember, I'm trying to think now. So we did an easy lattice.
Oh yeah, we did. So we did so lattice can be challenging. I think that the thing that you have to make sure of is we always talk about minimally handling your pie crust.
Yeah.
And, you want it to be kind of short and crumbly. If you want to do a lattice, you have to have a pie crust that's pliable. So one, you might want to work at least your top crust just a little bit more. And that's a fine line. Be careful because you don't want a tougher crust. But you also want to make sure that your pie crust is not too cold. These are two things that you always, hear about a good pie crust. It has to be cold. It has to, you have to work it a little bit less, but you need that top crust to be pliable enough that you can bend it without breaking it. Now, there's an easy way to do it where you're not actually weaving the crust, where you're laying some strips in one direction and then you're laying other strips in another direction.
Yeah.
And to be honest, unless someone's really studying your pie, it really just looks like a lattice crust. So that's an easy way to get away with that. If you don't want to overwork your pie crust, you're not as experienced dealing with doughs, and you're not really sure about how to keep it at the right temperature, and you want to just keep everything cold, that's a way to do it.
Yeah.
Lattice crusts are really nice when you're working with a really wet filling because you've got a lot of holes for liquid to evaporate. So that's it can be a really nice way to if you've got any kind of a fruity pie is going to be pretty liquidy.
Why don't we do in the kitchen segment, we show how to do some pie toppings.
That would be great.
Sure.
Because you can do the lashes, like Ami said, you can do cutouts, and it doesn't just have to be like apple, like little apples or whatever. Like we've done, I think we did the alphabet on one.
That was
cherry
fun.
pie.
We did a cherry pie, and we cut out the letters for cherry.
Oh, we did. That's what we did.
Oh,
yeah.
It was so
It was
cute.
gorgeous.
It was
And then
very cute.
Ami did this one. You have to check out the post on biggerbolderbaking.com. But the one where this is a little bit trickier. You put the glass in the middle of the pie, and then you do the strips around. We won't be showing that one today, but we'll show you some fun ones. It's really easy. And I will say that if you're new to pie making, do try to make your own pie crust. It really does make a difference to do your own homemade pie crust, unless you are really afraid and you can buy good quality. Phyllo pastry is also another great pastry that can be used for pies. When you think about like baklava and spanakopita and those things, like phyllo can bake up really nice. And often what people do is you can kind of butter it. Because you always butter between the layers, but kind of crunch it up on top of your pie and give a really rustic look. And it looks really beautiful, but you have your pastry and your filling and everything, but it was like really easy to create.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there's lots of fun ways. We can show some later. Hi everyone, I'm Gemma Stafford, professional chef, cookbook author, creator of Bigger Bolder Baking, and the host of the Need to Know podcast, where we bring you everything from the baking world of entertainment and celebrity gossip. Today is a special episode as we partner with No Kid Hungry to highlight the amazing work they're doing to combat childhood hunger. And that is why we're raising funds and awareness for No Kid Hungry, a national campaign to end childhood hunger in America. You can join us in the fight against childhood hunger by making a donation at nokidhungry.org/need to know, or you can scan the QR code below. Every dollar we raise can help connect a child to 10 meals.
We're back with my favorite section here at Need to Know, and that is the Bold Baking Hotline, where we take questions directly from the audience and answer them right here. So the first question is, how can I make a marshmallow topping for a sweet potato casserole that doesn't melt into a mess?
I would say my gut says use the giant marshmallows.
Ooh.
Because, you want it to melt, right? Not you want it to soften. The giant marshmallows are probably the way to go because they take longer to melt.
Right.
Is that the right answer?
I like that answer.
Okay, so if you're making this from like right away, and your potatoes are hot, and you're mashing them with the butter and the sugar, and you put them you're not really having to. The only reason why this is going in the oven is to toast the marshmallows.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you put the mini marshmallows on top because that's the look.
Oh, is it?
It is. Yeah, you have to put the mini marshmallows on top, and then just watch it carefully. Once the marshmallows start to toast on top, pull it out.
Yeah.
If the marshmallows are melting into a mess, it may be that your oven temperature might be too low, so that the marshmallows are melting and losing their shape before they toast on top. So you want to be able to have a high enough temperature so that you get that nice char.
Yeah.
You have to watch it so it doesn't burn, and then that's it. And then your sweet potatoes are already hot. If you've made your sweet potatoes in advance and they're in the fridge and they're cold, warm up the sweet potatoes without the marshmallows for about 20 minutes in the oven, then put your marshmallows on and continue cooking for another 20, 30 minutes until they're toasted on top. But keep the temperature, you'd have to look at your recipe. But I think if someone's having a problem with the marshmallows melting before they're toasting, I would say that's temperature too low.
That's so interesting. All right. Well, our next question, sticking to marshmallows here, is how do I make the tiny marshmallows that come in hot chocolate packets? Are they just dehydrated marshmallows?
Yes, they are. Ami actually has a really good tip for this.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you happen to have a dehydrator, you can dehydrate marshmallows. But you can also, and this is not from experience, I have only read that you can dehydrate marshmallows in the oven. So I have to, full disclosure, I'm not speaking from experience. But I believe you can do it. You put them on parchment, the lowest setting on your oven, few hours.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
A few hours, the other much electricity.
Yeah. Yeah. And marshmallows also just on their own last quite a long time.
Yeah, they do.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe somebody's trying to make gifts.
Yeah.
Like, homemade hot chocolate.
They probably
gifts,
are.
And they want to put little dehydrated marshmallows.
They never puff up the same way that they did when they were a real marshmallow.
Right. If you don't, you do it with mini marshmallows. If you don't have mini marshmallows, you can cut up big ones.
Yeah. I will say that during the year we update old recipes on biggerbolderbaking.com, and we did my original recipe for homemade marshmallows that is years old. We redid it, and if you are looking for, especially if you're looking to give a gift or an edible gift this holiday season, those are fantastic. I ate them for days after, and they're fantastic. They last a long time. They last around 4 weeks, so you can make them in advance. Even longer, but I'd say 4 weeks. And they're really fun. They're really thick. They're lovely.
Yeah, I will say a homemade marshmallow is a game changer.
Yeah.
The first time I had a homemade marshmallow was like,
yeah, they're really different.
They're
so good. I take out my blowtorch and I just toast it and eat it myself. It's a very bad habit.
No, it sounds like a great habit. What are you talking about?
When you make them homemade too, you can do things like put peppermint in them, and then you've got like this peppermint marshmallow that you put in a hot chocolate. It's really good.
Oh, there's Ami getting fancy again.
Yeah, I know, right? Can't help herself.
Well, I think it's time we head over to the kitchen and see some pie crust demonstrations. What do you say?
Yeah, sounds good.
Great.
Let's do it.
All right, so here we are in the kitchen. I'm going to just talk you guys through a few really simple pie designs. Now, I don't have a pie, so we're just going to show it to you on this pan, and we're going to pretend that that's our pie. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is a lattice. And now, if you've noticed that I've moved the pie crust around and it's really bendy, and that's really important when you're doing a lattice crust. So I'm going to get my pie crust nice and floured so it's not sticking. And then I'm going to take this pizza cutter. You could use a knife if you don't have a pizza cutter. And I'm going to cut about 1-inch strips. The first thing I've done is I've rolled my pie crust we're going to pretend that this is a 9-inch pie. And I've rolled my pie crust to greater than 9 inches so that the strips will drape over the pie. So here we go. I'm going to just freeform it. Sometimes I get very precise and use a ruler, but it really depends on what you're going for. So here we are. We're going to do strips like this, about 1 inch. You can use your thumb If you want to gauge about 1 inch, just know that when you cook your pie, the pastry is going to bubble and shift. And so whatever precision you have is you're going to lose a little bit in the baking, and the rustic look of a pie is part of the charm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in the center, and I'm going to take one of the longer strips. I'll just start with this one. And we're going to pretend, again, that this is a pie. I'm going to put that right on top. Okay? Then I'm going to skip the 2 over here, and I'm going to take the other 2. And we're going to go like this. And we're going to pretend that we have those skipped strips there. So we're going to give about 1 inch of space. And then we'll take, all right, this looks a little bit, here we go. I'm going to smooth it out a little bit. Then we're going to do this. And maybe we'll smooth this out a little bit. And then we're going to do this. Now, if you've got a little piece that's broken, you're just going to fix it like that. Okay? Like that. That's fine. And then you just carefully lift it up. Now we're going to start our weaving. So this is how we're going to do it. We're going to pull back the center. We're going to leave these 2. As we remember, we're kind of going every other. And we're going to do that. And then we're going to basically try to weave. So here we go. If it breaks, don't worry about it. You just press it together like that. It's fine. And remember, once we get our lattice done, you'll do an egg wash and you can further smooth things out. So don't worry if things break. Pie crust is very forgiving, especially if it's nice and supple and soft like this. So here we go. So then we're going to just go the opposite. So we're going to take another strip, and because the center was underneath, we're going to go on top. Again, it's so important that the pie crust is bendy and not too short. And we're going to lift and weave. If you lose your place, just take a look and remember, okay, this is going to go on top. So you just want to do the opposite. Every time you're crossing a pie lane, I'm going to call it a pie lane, you're going to do the opposite of what you see. If it breaks, just squeeze it together. All right, there you go. And then you're going to keep going. I'll do a final one. Again, I'm going to go opposite. So we're going to go like this. And again, I'm not worrying that it broke. Just going to squeeze it back together. And we will do it on the last one here. All right, so that is a lattice crust. All right, now, if this was a pie, all of these would be hanging down, and you're going to simply just squeeze every place where the bottom of the crust and the top of the crust meet together. And there you have it. There's your lattice crust. So the next design we're going to do, I'm going to show you if you want to do cutouts. This is one of my favorite things to do with the pie because it's so pretty and impressive and also incredibly easy. So one of the things that you want to make sure with this is that you've got a nicely floured surface so nothing sticks. And I've got these beautiful cutters. It's like little maple leaves, so really nice for for a fall pie. You dip it in flour, and then you just go ahead and cut and pop them out like that. And you can do as many as you want. There you go. So I'll do 4 or 5, and then I'll show you what you can do with them right here. Okay, we've got 5 cutouts. And now we're going to just move this lattice aside. We're going to, again, pretend that this is the top of our pie. And now you're going to just simply lay your pie cutouts however you want. You can cut out your entire rolled out pie crust, and so you can have your cutouts sort of overlapped. You can arrange them right on the edge. Another really fun thing that we like to do when you can, we have all samples of this on the website, is you can get these wonderful letter cutouts. So now, if your letter cutouts are, if your pie is sticking, you just take a little knife and poke it out. So then we got letters. So I think on the website we spelled out cherry to go on top of a cherry pie, which was super cute. And here I've just cut out pie, just to be super clear about what we're making. And you can cut out as many of these as you want. Where the lattice crust needs to be really pliable, if you're doing cutouts, it's really helpful if your pie crust is very cold. And you can do whatever letters you want. You can fill up the whole surface of your pie. They're going to stay floating. Here are some designs. And to get more information, go to biggerbolderbaking.com. And there's an article there about pie design. All right, so there you have it. Some really simple ways to decorate your pies.
Thanks so much for listening. Make sure to like, subscribe, rate, and review us anywhere you listen to podcasts. And you can also watch every episode of Need to Know on YouTube.
From HRN and the Bold Baking Network, you were watching the Need to Know Baking Entertainment podcast.